Hello, 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 people. It's so nice to be here again on another lovely Tuesday. It's really getting cold. It's getting cold. I should have said sunny Tuesday, but it's not sunny anymore. You're welcome to another very exciting episode of 3,000 Miles on Jambo Radio. And it's still me, that humble servant who's here to serve you, brother K. And today, we'll have quite some intellectuals in the building, and we're going to be hitting and dissecting the topic. So just stay put, stay tuned to your radio, stay tuned anywhere on your listening device as you listen on the go, because today is going to be really interesting. And the lines are open today, so we're taking calls. So if you would like to call to make a contribution on a particular issue, just call in. Today's topic, we're looking at the employment merits, Africa versus the Western world. It's really very interesting topic we're going to be looking into. But before we look into the topic, I just want my guests to say hi to the people. Saeed, how you doing?
I'm okay. It's nice to be here today. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, really nice to be here. And all the way from Birmingham, my very good brother and our very good scholastic scholar, John. Say hi.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be part of the discussion today.
Yeah.
It's a
So
nice
you see,
conversation to share with you.
very
Hello to
good.
everyone listening to us.
So you see, the is a star-studded cast. It's an all-star. It's gonna be an all-star match. So quickly, I like starting the show with experiences I've had. Experiences. I remember sometime in 2015, I was working in a bank. I was in a bank, and there was this opening to be like a regional sales manager for the consumer sales unit. So I've been there for about 4 years. I've led my team. We've had some good results. So I was recommended by my manager. We had all the interviews and everything, and honestly, I did well. When I got back, my manager called me and said, "Boy, you represented the branch well. I'm proud of you." And I felt I aced it and everything. And and after a while, there was this girl who was acting. She was acting she was the acting sales manager because the former sales manager left. But she was trying to get the role, but she wasn't so qualified. It was clear that she wasn't really qualified because she hadn't really had the track record of leading a team and everything. Overnight, and all of a sudden, we just got a mail that she was taken. I replied, "I'd like to know the parameters of which she was chosen," because me, I was really very bold. I sent a message to the HR of the head. I was like, "I'd like to know the parameters. On what grounds was this girl taken? We wrote aptitude test. Can you please furnish us with our results of the test we wrote? Let us know how we scored." There has to be some parameters.
Yes.
And the next thing I got replies that at the end of the day, long story short, I left the bank that same year. Because yeah, it was really frustrating because there was no parameters in picking the person you picked. And that leads me to opening discussion. What do you think? Do you think in job selections generally in Nigeria, both on the private, let's not go to the government sector right now. Let's start from the private sector. Do you think there's fairness when it comes to selection in terms of, is it selected on merit and the technical ability of the individual, or what do you think? Let's kick the discussion from there. Said.
Yeah. To be honest, there are two ways to this. If you ask me generally, as a Nigerian, and you ask me about whether employment is based on merit or not, I will say no. But nevertheless, there are still some reputable organizations that employ based on merit. But when you look at the percentage of companies, organizations that employ based on merit, and the percentage of those that employ on, or perhaps maybe not based on merit, you won't do anything other than to agree with me that there are a larger percentage of organizations in Nigeria that employ based on no merit. You just share your experience now, but there's something that I want to pick out from there. The fact that you are bold enough to challenge the organization about the decision, but unfortunately, they still didn't refill the parameters they use. If they have actually employed the other lady based on merit, I think they should be bold enough to refill the parameter they use. For them not to have revealed that, it means they are still fall in the categories of those organizations that we are talking about. In summary, in Nigeria, it is about everything has been politicized. It's about who you know.
Very true.
Who you know. It's about connection. It's about, a lot of things. Even if you're an organization, you have worked in an organization for so many years. I wouldn't want to go into the details of my own experience from this point, but I may still go there later.
Yeah, definitely. Because we are willing to listen.
Because I have also worked in an organization for more than 4 years, where I see people employed after me got promoted, or people that we are employed at the same time got promoted ahead of me. Not even talk about promotion. You talk about confirmation of appointment, which shouldn't be last more than just 6 months.
Should we be up to 6 months?
Should it even be up to 6 months or 3 months? If I tell you that my own confirmation of appointment took years, not to talk of promotion.
Maybe because you didn't have a godfather or something.
That's where I'm
going. Or you were not. See, the truth is, I will draw you back, John. Yeah. Let me draw him back, and I want you to react. He talked about parameters.
Yeah.
Has there been any organization in Nigeria that uses that when they employ, they bring out the parameters which they use in employing, and they make it open to the public and say this is why we're employed and this is do they do that to employees or people, applicants rather? Let me use that word. John.
Oh well, it's a very controversial issue. I don't think anybody does that. No organization shows you the reason they have employed you or the reason they have rejected your application whatsoever. But then we cannot say that the whole Nigeria labor environment is imbued with nepotism and man no man, as we always say it, not what you know or who you know. Yeah, it happens, and I don't want to be blind to the fact that it also happens elsewhere in the world, even in the United Kingdom. When you know someone who is in the position of power or who is part of the management board or directors, your promotion may be faster or you may be appointed because of that, regardless if anyone else is more, qualified than you are. But it really happens in Nigeria because not even accepting that fact will deter us from, bringing solution to it. We need to first acknowledge that we have that problem of nepotism in Nigeria labor environment first. But I will equally want to open up that there are quite a number of people in private sector and then public sector too, who are very, very transparent in what they do. Yeah, I have quite a number of people who have that integrity to, choose or select someone. They won't even feel it in house. They have families or members of friends or families who can fill the position. But then because they don't want to jeopardize their organization or business, they just feel, okay, who is more? This shows more in the private sectors. Because when you have individuals who feel that the organizations have to move forward and it has to be, people or staffed by very competent people, you see that it doesn't really happen much in private sectors. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 examples. At the end of the day, there will still be maybe some inaccuracies in employment relationship, employer-employee relationship, what do you call it, staff relations. But then, when it comes to application employing you, the private sector does better in Nigeria.
You said a lot. You said a lot, and I will react to a lot of things. But I want to bring in 2 words right now because there are 2 words that are very prevalent. in the working environment in Nigeria. Two local linguals, and even when I was working, because I worked in a sector. I work in the banking sector, and the banking sector is where a sector where you have to lick a lot of asses and lick a lot of boots if you really want to succeed. There are two words. One is a Yoruba word, Otinkpu. I know you guys are Yoruba. You understand what I'm saying? Otinkpu. And there's another word, Mamadu. That is Igbo. Otinkpu. I don't know if I'm getting the pronunciation right.
You get the pronunciation right, because I'm beginning to wonder what.
But it's, I know a lot. There are a lot of guys in my office that were using it. It's like a word where you have to be a yes man to everybody.
Oh, okay.
Otinkpu.
Okay,
It's
Otigbo.
Oh, it's called
Otigbo.
It's Otigbo, because I know they call it Otinkpu then.
Otigbo,
Where you have to
maybe.
So where you have to now do yes sir to everybody.
Otigbo means I concur with you.
I had a lot of people in the office. They call them Otinkpu. This one Otinkpu. This one Otinkpu, because you were. And another word is Mamadu. Is an Igbo word, means who you know. Man, when you so, and that is so unfortunate that is how the Nigerian sector has been built. You get into an office. You get into an office. You have to be loyal
to someone,
to the Oga, in a way that, imagine that time we're working in the morning. My manager comes to work. She's with her bags in her car. You are driving. I'm driving in. She's driving in. She's expecting you to come and help her hold her bags as she go into the office. Why should I? And you don't do that. They make it look like this one is not loyal.
It's not loyal. Yeah.
So it's a lot of things. A lot of things.
Kevwe, if you go to that aspect of the discussion, it will take us deeper. It's a slippery slope into a larger discussion.
That is where I want us to go.
Exactly,
what
because
is the tradition, what is the view, what is the behavior of employment labor? Labor rules or environment in Nigeria. It's so different, because whatever we talk about, whatever the subject we're talking about, you have to consider the system that operates, because every other thing is affected by the system. It's affected by culture, it's affected by tradition, it's affected by how people relate. The social system built.
Okay, John, let me ask you a question. Labor. Yeah. Are you familiar with the labor laws in Nigeria?
There is actually no sovereign labor law that guides employment in Nigeria.
But every organization may have their own.
Nobody really cares about the labor law.
So what is the job of the NLC? What is the job of the NLC then? If we don't have labor laws?
The only time you think of the labor law is maybe if you want to sue your employer for a reason. That's when you start looking for, okay, what's actually my right? What's your situation?
My right? That is the first thing, because a lot of people do not even know what their right is when it comes to working. For example, like you talked about, I was talking about carrying your boss's bag. I work in an organization here. We all work in the UK. Let's bring it back home. You will not see a case where I have to hold a superior's bag, or see a superior and I'm obliged that I must greet you good morning. When I say superior, I say good morning, sir.
Yeah. Okay. From that angle, in my own experience, when you asked me back in Nigeria and the UK, I think it didn't come as a surprise to me when I got to the United Kingdom, working somewhere, and I don't have to be saying yes sir to anybody, because I was fortunate to work with a Nigerian who is also a British citizen.
Back in
Nigeria. He lived in the UK for more than 30 years before he moved back to Nigeria. And the way he related with me, the way we do in offices, you don't even know. He is the kind of the boss, he's the head of department, who we call all the members of staff, everybody come inside my office, let us discuss. I'm not the boss, let us do it together. He's not the kind of a person that will be coming into the office and everybody will now be afraid. They will be shouting, will be standing up, good morning, sir, good morning, sir, good morning, sir. Unlike how we experience in other organizations. So that was why I said it doesn't come as a surprise to me when I moved into the United Kingdom, and I see how the boss, the head of department, the head of unit relate with you when you work. But nevertheless, that doesn't mean that it doesn't happen in Nigeria. It happens. I would just say I'm fortunate to work with someone who has UK experience.
When you say it happens, we are talking 1 out of 1,000 or
yes.
2,000.
Yes.
Because John, you cannot tell me you've worked in Nigeria. You worked in real organized setup, and it's so unfortunate that in most of these very organized setup, things like this still go on. You know,
it goes on, and I don't think not anyone expects it to stop. It can only be moderated. There are areas that we can address. There are areas that we cannot address. Even in this discussion, there's a point we are missing. The environment of the United Kingdom, the culture and tradition varies with what is obtainable in Africa and Nigeria now. And then we cannot say one culture is superior to another.
Definitely
the only thing is that there are some culture and tradition that are anti-development. They work against development. Where they hinder development, we have to, in a way, moderate them. That's why I say we can only moderate or modify them. And where they don't, well, if you happen to be here, your son, well, even if it's 2 years, will call you by name. You won't accept that in Nigeria, will you?
Yes, no, of
course. No, of course you won't.
You won't. So that's a culture here. That is. So you have to think about the culture. You have to think about what is obtainable somewhere. At the end of the day, when you compare the two culture and the environment, you won't say that one is superior to another.
Okay, but let me stop you there.
That is the constitution,
John,
the unwritten constitution of the people in that environment.
John, let me stop you there.
Hold on, please. With the respect that the boss expects you, the respect the boss expects you to show to him, not necessarily you must. It shouldn't be expected. But there is a level of respect that your boss or your supervisor will expect from you that your supervisor in the UK will not expect from you, because it's not part of the culture here.
Okay. I must stop you here now. You talked about two things, about culture and system. So are you trying to tell me here that the UK, their work in the work environment, the culture supersedes the system, or the system supersedes the culture?
No, the system was built from the culture. Their culture was inbuilt, because the culture has been existing before a system was built. Don't forget that.
Yes.
The culture is the essence of people, their lifestyle. So that lifestyle is built into their employment system, into their labor system, not just in the employment or labor. We are talking of the whole system, even in school. Tony, you can call Tony, which is the head of unit or head of department, by name. You can challenge whatever he says. You can argue without him getting offended, because part of their lifestyle is that everybody has a say, everybody can talk, everybody is equal.
But you can't even try that in Nigeria.
You can, apparently. You can.
There's no superiority by age.
Exactly. They don't even have superiority by knowledge.
There's superiority by age. In Nigeria, there's superiority by age. There's superiority by seniority. How long have you been in, by experience? How long have you been in the business?
On a job and everything.
All kind of superiority will also come to bear in organizations where you work. So there is no how you will be in that kind of environment and not adhere to that culture. If you don't adhere to that culture, you are not wanted. Because that is
so basically.
I'm saying this because I have read a lot about discussions comparing the UK and Nigeria, and at the end of the day, I'm usually in the middle of bringing the whole of the story to bear, so that you don't see one aspect of the story and forget the other aspect of the story. You know the danger of telling one single story.
Definitely.
So when you look at it holistically, we see that the things we are mentioning, we are bringing into the air now for people to listen. They are very wrong, but the fundamental basis is not what we see on the surface. It's a system, it's a culture. So where they are wrong, let's bring it up. Where there is, maybe conflict, let's bring the conflict out. Let's discuss what it is wrong, and let's discuss what is fundamentally not wrong. Just
Okay,
culture.
John,
Not
what I'm
wrong
going
or
to
not
do
right.
is, at the end of this, I won't forget that. At the end of this, towards the end of this whole discussion, I'm going to ask you a question, and I'll be needing
Okay.
your honest response to that question. So going
Yeah,
forward,
yeah,
I like
sure. If you can ask me now, I don't mind.
no, I
Anyway.
won't ask you now. I'm keeping it. I know I'm keeping the question because you talked about you expecting a level of respect from a superior expecting a level of respect from employee. It's everywhere, even here in the UK. There's some level of respect. You're in as much as your boss or your supervisor is a very free person. There's some level of respect.
Yes.
Insubordination will not be accepted. But a case in Nigeria where my manager gives me money to go and buy food for him, or tell me, Kevwe, go and buy bole and fish across the road for me. And I tell him, sir, I have something I'm doing, I might not be able to go. And I am victimized for that. Because I did not go and buy bole and fish, which is not part of my job function. It was not originally stated in my contract.
And you are not a messenger.
I am not a messenger. I was not employed as a messenger. I was employed to bring accounts into the bank, to bring customers. I am not telling me to leave my primary function. For the fact that I decided to go and buy bole and fish one day for you was out of my own benevolence. But a case where your boss now sees it as something that you need to do, if he tells you to go and get bole and fish for him, or sometimes I know bosses who even in the bank who even go as far as telling their subordinates, go and help me pick my child from school. It has happened to me. I'm not, he said, take my car key, go to my child.
Yeah, it happens.
Go and pick my child.
All of these things happen, yeah.
And in a case where I did refuse, and then you tell me that I am not obeying the culture, that is going overboard. We should call a spade a spade. A lot of employers go overboard.
You won't put that as part of the culture I was trying to say. That's not part of the culture. Right? That's why I said where it is extreme, where it is wrong, let us bring it to account. Where it is that there has to be a balance of where the culture ends and where extreme behavior or excessive behavior starts. Excessive behavior is sending you to
I think we're getting a call. We're getting a call. Let's take this call. We're getting a call. So let's just take the call and we'll come back to discussion. Your name and where you calling from?
Right, this is Olu calling from Worcester. How are you guys doing?
We're doing good. How you doing?
I'm fine. Well, I've been listening to your discussion, wonderful discussion, but I just said I should call in before going to class to my students.
Thank you very much.
First thing I would say is that in this discussion, you need to remember the place of culture. It's what I teach. I teach HRM. That's my field.
Yeah.
And culture is important. The national culture of each country would determine the system. It will determine the organizational system for each sector. And that's what you see in Nigeria. That is what you see here. Any part you work in Nigeria, whether in the north or the west or the east or the south, you see much of what you've been talking about. How you say good morning to your boss, you help them to carry their bags in and everything. It is what we see in our local area. It is what we see at home. It is the culture of the people. There's nothing wrong with it. With the management system or management model we have in those organizations in Nigeria or in Africa, it works and agrees with our system. Now, when you come to the UK, you say it's not there. It's there, but in another form that conforms with the culture of the UK. And I'll tell you how it is there.
I like to hear that. Honestly, that was what I was waiting to hear.
So, I'll tell you how you know it is there. Now, it depends on how deep you decide to have a relationship with people at work.
Yeah.
And I know many people who have gone far in this system will tell you that, you know what, there are some situations that happen at work that you just don't shout about it. You just don't make noise of it. You just say, yes, sir, or yes, ma'am, and you move on. And when you say that yes, no, yes, no, sir, and you move on, it opens the door for your progress in that organization. It opens the door to your career development.
Yeah.
Yes, merit is there. Your experience, your skills, your knowledge, all other abilities we look at, they are there. But there's something we call the soft skills you need. And those are the things we've turned into the courses we teach we teach people in university, talking about soft skills. You need to have soft skills. Those soft skills are elements of the culture of the UK or the Western culture. How you address people, how you come to compromise on things. I can give you a quick example which will help us.
Yeah.
So let's say, for example, you have a boss who needs to sign off your promotion application, because if you want to get a promotion here in organizations here, your boss must sign off whatever application you're putting forward. The line manager must sign off.
Oh.
Now, so let's say you have been, you've always been agreeing with your line manager. Okay?
Yeah.
You've been proving that, man, this is the UK. We all have the right to talk. We all have the right to put our opinions forward, everything. Yeah, it's fine. But when it gets to this point, the guy may simply just sign your application form and that's it. It may not write any word to support what you are putting forward as your proposal for promotion.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
However, he will have the other guy who never argues with him, a guy who will actually listen to him. They will go for a fact together, to go and smoke together, talk together, no argument, and he will write a lot of stuff about that guy. In fact, it may be you who argues with him more, that teaches the guy what he's doing.
Mm.
And that guy will get the promotion, and you are just the human rights activist.
That's right. So I'd like to ask you a question now.
Okay.
Quick one. Because you talked about culture embedded in the system. So coming from the African setup where you have to do a lot in the office, so where do you now draw the line between being professional at work and being a professional houseboy at work?
Well, that's your own definition or opinionation of it. It's not like I said before. The system, the management system in every country or every context you find yourself, even the organization itself, is a product of the culture of that context. Anything you have in any context is a product of the culture of that context. So if you term it as maybe having to run an errand for a boss, is you being a houseboy or house girl, is the way you've tended.
But I've had cases where people refuse to go do things that are not in line with their job function, and at the end of the day, they get victimized.
Okay, I'm a lecturer now, okay?
Yeah.
I've had situations, before I became a lecturer, when I was a PhD student, I've had situations where my professor couldn't go and do a presentation at a conference, and he's passed it on to me to go and do. It's not part of my terms of reference, but I will take it and go and do it.
But that's still part of
your learning curve.
duties.
That's part of your learning curve.
Hold on. I'll tell you why it is not part of it.
Okay.
If I was the one who prepared the presentation myself, submitted it to that conference, then that is the part that is part of my terms.
Okay.
It's not what he has done that I was not part of, and he just wants me to fill in for him. Do you get what I'm trying to say here?
Yeah. To some extent, we get it too.
Particularly, I get what you're saying, but I have a point there. There's something I need to quickly bring out there. There's what we call official and distant, and there's what we call domestic and non-decent. When it comes to domestic tasks, like going to pick my son in school, going to buy me food across the road, or going to the restaurant, those are rather domestic. So now, as far as I have agreed with you, and then you have helped me to elaborate, punch precisely what I was trying to bring out, there is usually this line that we don't want to cross, even in Nigeria. Some things are just excessive. Some tasks are excessive. They are, domestic, not one of the things you give to your subordinates or your supervisee to do for you.
Okay.
So I just need to know that as we go on.
So, for example, like what you said there, for example, say you're a boss to someone, and you send your subordinate to please help you pick up your children from school. Today's generation will say that's not part of my reference, that's not part of my job thing.
Yeah.
But the culture is the thing. In the UK, you may say no, I'm not doing it. Why? Because
exactly, that's where it comes. That's exactly what we are trying to say here.
Exactly. Yeah. So in the UK, you can say no to it, but in Nigeria, it is the culture of the place. You must obey your elders, whether they are related to you or not. It's a culture.
From that angle, Mr. Oni, I want to quickly share. I'll be brief about that. John can testify to this. I've had the opportunity to work in the university where I graduated. I was employed after graduation in the same department where I graduated from. You can imagine how it will be like in Nigeria. Working in a department where you graduated, where you work with your lecturer that taught you while you were in school. Most of
you
the
were
time,
their student and then became their colleague.
And became their colleague.
You were not even, you did not have a say, sir.
I don't have, you have your own job. They bring their own. They have their script to mark. You have your script to mark. You mark their own. You help them to do. You won't always be say. At the end of the day, once you do anything, they will say, "You are my student. You are my student." You know.
Yes, it's true.
But in the UK,
it's not supposed. But my own
in the UK, you finish your PhD. I don't know whether you still work in the university where you graduated, where you did your research degree. I want you to let us compare. How is it like for you in the UK, working in the same department where you did your PhD? And let's look at Nigeria as an example as well.
Well, the thing I'll tell you is that I've moved on from the university where my professor is.
Okay.
However, I still work with my professor. I still do things for him. That is something I use for me to get things from him to move on in life.
Yeah, it's Mr. Oni, it's normal for you to help her. Like me, I'm not saying you now working for people who have helped you or something, but my point is there has to be a line.
Yeah.
That is where some employers in Nigeria don't get it. There's no limit to what they want to use their employees to do. I've seen employers sending their employees to their house to do their domestic house chores. You will tell your employer, come to my house over the weekend, come and help me wash my clothes. It's absurd. It's crazy.
That is not acceptable.
Yes.
I've even
exactly. That's the line we're trying to bring out.
That's the point, because even you said something earlier about the UK has that soft skill. I agree totally with you, because I work in a place where I've actually used it and it's worked. I worked in the hospital where I'm an agency staff for the hospital, but the hospital keeps requesting for me regularly.
Yes.
Because of the way I work with them, I don't argue with them. They tell me this thing, I do it on time, I'm timely. So it's normal. They had soft skills where we have to now use our initiative outside our job function. But
exactly,
it's there, but they are not extreme. Nobody will victimize you for not doing a job. They won't sack you for. But I know in Nigeria they can sack you for not doing your own personal job. I've seen in the office when they said
you have to belong to
I've been in the office when they were discussing people they wanted to drop. I was in the meeting, they were discussing, and they put it, and they said, I drop this guy, he's not lawyer. You can imagine. Don't drop him because he does not know his job. This guy no lawyer. He's not loyal.
And that's where merit comes in.
Guys, let me just say my last word before I go. Now that was funny. See, the truth of the matter is, what you just mentioned there, loyalty, it's key.
Yeah.
It happens here where we're talking. It happens a lot, but you don't see the way they flaunt it at your face in Africa, because they will flaunt it in your face. They will let you know that we did this, But here, you will never hear about it until you get into that mist. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
You will never hear about it at all. But it happens. But one thing I want you to make sure you do, and we don't confuse, is that whatever happens in Africa is a product of the culture of the African context. Whatever happens in the West is a product of the context and the culture of the West.
Very correct.
And we should not try to use one to judge the other.
No, that fact is established.
But we can still always talk about the excessiveness where we need to draw the line, so we can.
That's the merit and the demerit.
If I talk as a businessman, what I will tell you is that it's about the performance and the result for me. That's where it comes to. It's about the performance. If Dangote, the people working with Dangote, working with Femi Otedola, working with Adenuga and the likes, if they are doing that and they are getting the results, then all fine, all well and good.
So the thing is, we have not even delved into the government sector. We are still hitting. Right now. We are still chipping. We are still just chipping on. We are chipping on it.
What I'm telling you now are things that even happen in the civil service in Nigeria. Bosses sending their subordinates on errands.
No, the civil service is worse. The civil service is worse. The civil service is.
So it's just the culture. It's just the culture. And one thing I think has happened so far is that the Generation Y or the Generation Z and the millennials, they are delving away from that old culture, and it is what we are even seeing here in the West. You have younger ones who don't want to stay in the office now. They want to do their work beside the beach in Bahamas, and they're reporting to their boss in UK.
They're working hybrid now. Everybody wants to work hybrid.
But guys, I need to go now.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Oni. I really appreciate. Thanks for coming on the show. Have a good one. So in case you're just joining us, it's still 3,000 miles on Jambo Radio, and we've been discussing on the topic, which is a very exciting and very interesting topic, and we've had John and Said on with us, and we just had a caller from Mr. Oni, and it's really interesting. The topic is employment merits, the African versus the Western world. And in case you're just joining us, it's still Jambo Radio, and you can listen to us on our website www.jamboradio.co.uk, or follow us on all our social media platforms, from Facebook to Twitter to Instagram, YouTube, and all our sundry. And we're also on smart speakers. You can listen to us on smart speakers and listen to us on the go on your phone. And in case you want to call into the program and make your contributions, the number to call is +44 743 782 6865. I'll call the number again, +44 743 782 6865. So quick one. I want us to discuss, there was this very government job intervention that was done one time. It's a very popular one. Shopee, where the government said for those graduates who were not having jobs, they will give them a temporary placement and place them on the minimum wage for, was it 2 years or?
Are you talking about Empower?
Oh, Empower, sorry. I mean Empower, not Shopee. Shopee Empower.
Different from Empower.
Yeah, they're different, yeah. I think it was for 1 year or 2 years.
Yeah, 1 or 2 years, yeah.
So, let's discuss. What do you think? Do you think that program was a success, or it was just a compensation tool for politicians who helped the government get into power? John, you're stunned.
Yeah. I'm not stunned. Really,
or did you benefit from Empower? It's like you benefited from Empower.
No, I benefited, and
no wonder you're quiet.
Not what you think anyway. Not what you think. I benefited in that I knew people who were close to me who benefited directly. So that's like a benefit to me. If you have a friend or a younger one, or maybe a neighbor who did that, at least at the time they were not on streets looking for what to eat. So I would say I benefited, but directly for me, no, that's not what I mean. But there is this way to measure the success or the effectiveness of a thing that does that you don't at the end of the day condemn the whole thing. Why some things may be bad, they have some benefits, so to say, to the people. So I'm not going to condemn it. I won't say yes, successful, or no, not successful. So there is this always middle ground of you looking at it holistically and see what it has done to people. I wouldn't agree to it that it was just a compensation for people who brought the government into power. Part of the ways that benefits or things trickle down to people, to the masses in Nigeria, is through politicians, the senators, the reps, because at the end of the day, they will have people they can bring from their constituents
Exactly.
to
That
do
was
it.
what. That was
So
how it
and then
was.
that's how it trickles down. But it doesn't mean that some people who do not know politicians will not also benefit from it. For example, people who I knew benefited from it didn't know any politicians. But
But
the end of the day is what you want to measure is, did it help some people? Yes, it did. Did some people get job out of it? Yes, it did. Did some people become permanent staff because of it? Yes, it did. Nigeria is in a situation where you don't expect everything to be rosy because it's just at its very background trying to crawl up to the top. So a lot of things will be wrong, including the system, the method, and strategies of getting things done, which we are
no,
trying to
the
analyze
strategy
here.
was really very
But
wrong because I would say honestly, I wasn't a benefactor of that. I was somebody.
did you know people who
I was a,
benefited? Did you
I
know
was
people
a,
who
I
benefited?
know people who benefited, and it made
Then
me
you
realize
benefited.
that no, and it made me realize that I was a victim of the system rather than being a benefactor, because most of the people who benefited,
Yeah.
because it was supposed to be based on merit. You went online, filled forms, you put your degree. I know people who I had better qualifications than. I had way better qualifications than them, and they were getting the job just for the fact that okay, they knew one politician who they took their names to and everything. And the because I saw no, this one is not. I'm in a state that is owned by PDP, and a lot of PDP members are people. I say it unapologetically. I'm in a state where Delta State is a state where it's run by godfathers who you know and who you don't know. I saw where they were compiling names of people who they were going to take and who they were not going to take. And it's also unfortunate that people who are well qualified are cut out of, because the selection process of jobs in Nigeria is done in a way where the least qualified get the job. A very good example, I have a friend just now, she's trying to apply into the school of, she's trying to do her internship in nursing. She applied for, I'm not going to call the hospital,
yeah.
but it's in Delta State. She did the whole exams, and when the original list came out, she got a call from one of her friends who work in the hospital. Your name is on the list too, so probably they are going to call you soon. Believe you me, as I speak to you till right now, the girl hasn't gotten a call. People have started working. So the question you asked me, how after somebody has done well, you take out the person's name, you replace it with people's name. That cannot be done here in the UK. You've had jobs, you've gone for recruitment. I've had a lot of recruitment processes, and you see how transparent the processes are. They take you based on what you can deliver. They don't even take you but based on your CV, based on one-on-one interaction. I talk to you and I see what you can do, and that is how I feel jobs should be done. I don't know if I'm being right or if I'm wrong.
Yeah, you are right. You are right. But in the case of issue of Empower, I would have totally agreed that it was a success program, but I wouldn't say that because it was later bastardized. Because just the way John said that he knew a lot of people who are benefactors from the program who benefited from it. Same way I knew people. And the same way I apply as well, even why I have so many qualifications. I have ND, HND, I have a BSc and the likes. Yeah, you see a lot of people that doesn't even have the qualification that you have. They applied and they were shortlisted. Then went further to ask why I have not been shortlisted. A lot of people will tell you, why you are applying, you should have choose your state of origin. Some people will say, even though if you choose your state of origin, you should have choose a local government of your origin.
There's some who say you didn't choose education, you choose
the field education, you didn't choose agriculture, you didn't
a lot
choose
of
But my worry, the most painful aspect of it is that you see a lot of people who are later shortlisted for the offer, and you see them, they already have job they are doing.
Exactly, that's the point I'm coming to.
They have the job
People
they
who
are
had
doing
jobs,
already.
they
So
had jobs and they were
they
getting
become
empower.
A ghost
It goes,
worker.
honestly.
They pay them, they collect the salary every month, and they do nothing. Whereas there are a lot of people who actually needed this opportunity to feed their family or to do a lot of things. They didn't get the opportunity. At the end of the day, people who eventually benefited from this program, they didn't work. At the end of the day, the intention of the federal government for them to still render services to secondary school, primary school, was not achieved. Because they are expecting them in those schools, those primary school and secondary schools, to come over and maybe assist
The teachers,
full-time teachers to
teachers
teach the students. And they disappeared. They couldn't even find them, and they are on payroll.
John,
And that's where the problem.
you have a lot in your head. Say it, because the way your face tells me.
Well, if I would say it, I'm not going to agree with you totally.
No.
I won't agree with you.
This is not
I won't agree with you.
a
You don't
panel
have
where
to.
we have
You
to
don't have
agree.
to.
We have to come. We are coming up
No.
with our opinions.
Said, Kevwe, let me put this across to you. In your mind, do you have an example of someone who didn't know a politician who applied and was shortlisted?
Yeah, I know.
Let me
Do
try
you
to
have an
think
example?
if I do.
I have example. I knew someone who applied
I can't remember.
without any politician, and he was even surprised that he was shortlisted.
So now, if you'd have that example, if it is just one, I know of 5 people who would, yes. And I know people who have qualifications who apply and didn't get shortlisted. So the parameter of who didn't know anybody was less qualified and was shortlisted, compared with someone who was qualified, knew nobody, and wasn't shortlisted. I cannot explain what happened in between that. But what I do is to bring things on the surface level and assess them based on what has happened before you put blame on either the government or people who are between, or politicians or people who organize the event. At the end of the day, the problem of people who got the job and was doing another job and was doing that part-time and failed wasn't the problem of the government. It wasn't the government's intention. It wasn't the government's fault that happened.
But you know the government.
Sorry, that was still the problem of underemployment. Because when you say people are unemployed, some people are underemployed. They are employed but underemployed. That means not very good job, or what they were earning was not even enough to cater for them. So if they have something on the side that they want to do, they will take it. It happens here where people work for 2 or 3 jobs at the same time to earn a living. So if you want to criticize that, or you want to condemn that, don't let us condemn it totally. Let us just pick out things that are bad in it and then praise things that are good in it. Because I know people who benefited from it sincerely. This is not about
John, Said, we're getting to the end of this. Our time is running out. I like to quickly ask two of your question, and I need your honest opinion. That's not the question I want to ask you. I will still ask you the question. Have you been a victim of bad job selection, of demerit when it comes to selection, of being when you were trying to apply for a job? Because I've been. I'll give you an example. When I finished school, I looked for a job. I had to look for a job virtually everywhere. I applied to join NEPA. Funny, right? I applied to join NEPA. So after the whole process, I submitted my CV, blah, blah. My mom knew someone in NEPA.
Okay.
But probably it's not knowing someone. It's knowing someone who knows someone. I'll give you 2 very classical examples. That was one. So when I tried to join NEPA, after the whole process, my mom got a call from the guy that the list is out too. My name is there from the original master list. That I should come to the office and see how they can process my employment letter. I went over time, and the guy, some days I'll meet him in the office, he'll tell me the list is there, they're bringing the list when they approve it. And that was how I started going until I got tired. And the man that was even helping me died. So
no,
that was how.
I understand what you're trying to say.
So that was how that one died. Let me finish it. Then there was this university in Nigeria, in Warri, that came up, Niger Delta, the Petroleum University, in Delta State. Do you know people were taken for that job based on for the fact that they were from a particular tribe. I saw it visibly when the chancellor, who is is a senator, one senator Amange, he came to the school. People wait for him at the entrance, and there was this lady. I knew the lady. She was working at another school. She had submitted a CV and everything. And she went there. She's like, I have a job. I applied for your job. I'm in job. Blah blah blah. The lady just told him. The guy just told him, you are a job. What's your name? Blah blah blah. Go to the office. Tell them to print your employment letter. Just like that. What do you have to say about that? I need your reaction. We're running out of time.
It happens. It happens. It is one of the peculiarities of Nigeria when it's come to employment.
No, sorry, let me cut you. It's one of the peculiarities of job hunting. I think what we are doing is that we are missing the basis of all this. In the UK, employment are chasing people. In Nigeria or in Africa generally, people are chasing jobs. Now, even if that's the thing, you are not hitting it.
Yes.
It's a different thing. When you have jobs that are more than people needed, look, people are advertising jobs. In Nigeria, people are running to get it, killing themselves to get it.
People advertising themselves for jobs, and not jobs advertising.
And now, what you also need to consider is whenever you have a very strong reference for job application, it counts. It counts in Nigeria, it counts in UK, it counts everywhere. So if you have a senator who is giving you a reference letter for a job, even if you have a doctor or a nurse or a professional who has provided you with a good reference, you are most likely to get the job based on that.
But they test your personal skill. They test your personal skill.
That's always it. But the second one I need to bring us to is that why all of these things happen in Nigeria. They happen. Let the world know. The other part of the story we are not telling is the story of where the integrity shows. I will give an example of the last custom employment exercise that was done. So I will give it a custom 70 to 80% transparency in that.
Nigeria custom.
And that government system, it depends on who is running it. The CG at the moment is someone, Mr. No Nonsense. I want to point to Said, when you got your employment in a Christian university at the time, it was a thorough investigation and you were hired based on merit. I know people who wouldn't hire anybody lesser.
Okay.
But your antecedent also matters.
We don't have time.
Are very wrong in Nigeria, there are also things that are good.
Definitely.
That we can also compare. Yeah.
So John, let me ask you this final question. I said I was going to ask you this question. Working in the UK and working in Nigeria, which do you prefer? Put the salary aside. Let's take out the monetary aspect. Put the environment. Which do you prefer?
I prefer the working environment in the UK.
And
I'll give you reasons.
Yeah? I need your reasons.
I'll
in
give
30
you
seconds,
reasons.
give me your reasons.
Now, back in Nigeria, I wasn't even employed under anybody. I was self-employed and I was earning my money every day, every second. I was getting my money because I had my own establishment.
Okay.
So, now the reason for preferring the UK environment is just because of openness, because of flexibility.
Okay.
When you have openness, you have flexibility. The working conditions are there and you have your right. So all of those things come together will help you to be productive.
Definitely.
In doing your work.
Said, what about you? What do you prefer?
Apparently, if I don't have preference for UK, I wouldn't have been here in the first instance. I would have remained in Nigeria and work where I work. So I prefer the in terms of the environment, just like the way John said, the environment, the everything. Even though sometimes where you earn a good salary in Nigeria. What about the environment? What about the security? What about the job security as well?
But
thank you very, very much.
Who may be listening to us, hold on, for the last note, for everyone who may be listening to us, it's not a condemnation of the Nigerian working environment at all. Okay. There are beautiful things to do there.
Yeah.
This has given us an international exposure, and then we're able to compare now because we've been able to experience both sides of the coin. So when people want to go there are beautiful places to work, there are lovely people to meet, and there are benefits too.
Oh, it's also unfortunate that at this point we have to go, and this is one of the saddest part of the show where I have to go. But we'll be back next week for another very interesting episode, another very interesting topic. Just stay tuned, stay locked to Jambo, stay locked to 3,000 miles. Engage us on YouTube, on Facebook, and your feedback will be much needed. And from me, have a lovely week and peace be unto you.